Everyone thought he would follow in Marlon Brando's footsteps. It was Tony Franciosa who ended up forgotten and bankrupt. How did that happen? We have learned the terrible truth. According to his NBC supervisor, he was completely uncontrollable. His adversaries in Hollywood warned of his threat. Shelley Winters, his ex-wife, uncovered his scandalous romance with Lauren Bacall, which completely demolished everything. Contrary to what you may have heard, the truth is even worse. His career was ruined by a Hollywood magnate who wanted retribution for him marrying his daughter. This was in addition to the 10 days he spent in jail. The biggest scandal in Hollywood is now coming to light. Tony Franciosa's birth name is Anthony George Papaleo, and he was born on October 25, 1928, in Little Italy, New York City. The little village of Melfi in southern Italy was his grandparents' original destination as they sought a better life. His mom was a seamstress and dad was a builder. Even though it was a challenging area to grow up in, the neighborhood was rich with Italian customs. The going was tough, and there was never enough money. His parents divorced when Tony was just a year old. The burden of parenting him fell on his mother and aunt. Even when they reconciled, he acknowledged that he and his father never had a close relationship. Despite the weekly visit to collect his $8 child support payment, he and his father maintained a cold relationship. He felt the impact of that absence. Every day, children growing up during the Great Depression had to fight for survival. In order to provide for her son, his mother worked long hours. Every cent counted since they lived in such a little, crowded space. Equally challenging were the streets of Manhattan. Knowing when to fight was crucial for life in these frequently violent times. Tony picked it up fast. "I learned to land the first blow when I was a kid," he remarked afterwards. His resolute, street-savvy demeanor remained with him throughout his life. His Italian roots helped him stay strong during tough times. Miniature Italy exuded its own vitality. Families remained united. People took pride in their heritage and continued to practice their traditions even when they were financially struggling. His upbringing had an impact on him that he didn't quite appreciate at the moment. It provided him with the emotional foundation he needed to make his acting come alive. Tony worked odd jobs after graduating from high school. He did odd jobs as a day laborer, chef, dishwasher, ship steward, and welder. Working hard and staying alive were lessons he learned from each job. He learned about the hardships endured by people from many walks of life and gained an appreciation for the value of hard work. He would eventually use that experience to his advantage while playing working-class roles. Unexpected events occurred when I was 18 years old. Free dancing classes at the YMCA were extended to him by a friend. Although acting was never in his plans, he happened onto an audition for Anton Chekhov's The Seagull while he was there. He was just curious, so he tried it out. He received a little role, much to his surprise. Everything changed at that moment. His newfound love was acting. He began his training with Joseph Giegler and went on to receive a full scholarship at New York City's Dramatic Workshop. He was a student of Lee Strasberg's at the famed Actors Studio and had performances with the Cherry Lane Theater and others. He learned from the finest in the business while working with future stars like B. Arthur. He stood out among the crowd of aspiring actors. People took note of him because of the fire and raw intensity he had. He changed his name, which was a major choice. He went by Franciosa, his mother's maiden name, instead of his own name, Anthony Papaleo. Her sacrifices might be honored in this way. He wanted to honor her memory because she had fought so hard to raise him on her own. It was a new beginning for him as well. Typecasting is a real possibility in Hollywood if your name sounds ethnic. Franciosa did double duty by preserving his history and expanding his opportunities. When Tony Franciosa joined the Greenwich Village's Cherry Lane Theater Group in 1948, he embarked on his acting career. The experimental plays that came out of this off-Broadway theater pushed the envelope of conventional storytelling. B. Arthur, Michael Gadzio, and Kim Stanley were among the budding performers who sharpened their abilities there. The daring and unconventional performances Franciosa saw while working in this creative setting inspired him to approach acting in a different way. His hard work paid off in 1950 when he was accepted into the Actors Studio, widely recognized as the gold standard for acting instruction. The studio was headed by Lee Strasberg. Presented their acting technique to a number of prominent figures in the field. Franciosa worked out with Ben Gazzara, James Dean, Marlon Brando, and others. He learned to tap into his emotions in the face of such extreme pressure, and that ability would later become his signature. He mastered the art of giving his roles an authentic, raw energy. His play End as a Man, which dealt with corruption at a Southern military academy, made its Broadway debut in 1953. On September 15th, the show opened off-Broadway at Theatre de Lys. On October 14th, it moved to Broadway. Franciosa brought a mix of sensitivity and resistance to the role of Private George Pendleton. The observers who spotted potential in him lauded his outstanding performance. With Ben Gazzara at the helm, the play reached new heights of dramatic intensity. Franciosa proved he could play nuanced roles in this performance, which catapulted him to stardom. With A Hat Full of Rain, he achieved his greatest success in 1955. Heroin addiction was a taboo issue at the time, but the play made an effort to change that. Franciosa portrayed Polo Pope, a concerned brother trying to support his addicted war veteran brother Johnny. Shelley Winters portrayed Johnny's wife Celia, while Ben Gazzara played Johnny. Michael Villagazzo's play had 398 performances beginning on November 9th at the Lyceum Theatre. Franciosa's portrayal was moving because it conveyed the brother's anguish and profound affection for his family. He was widely regarded as one of the most passionate performers of his period, and his efforts garnered him a Tony Award nomination. Everyone in Hollywood noticed. In Fred Zinman's 1957 film adaptation of A Hatful of Rain, Franciosa played Polo Pope again. Don Murray took over for Ben Gazzara as Johnny, while Eva Marie Saint played Shelley Winters' part. There was a little alteration to the ensemble. The film faithfully adapted the play, capturing all of the intense feelings that made the play a smash on Broadway. With his riveting performance, Franciosa won the prestigious Volpe Cup for Best Actor at the prestigious Venice Film Festival. It was in the same year that he won his one and only Oscar nomination for Best Actor. The documentary stood out because it showed the effects of addiction on families in an honest way. An Earful of Rain introduced a new degree of reality to filmmaking during an era when such subjects were typically shunned by Hollywood. Franciosa was lauded by critics for her deft portrayal of Polo's inner conflict. The film was billed as a striking sobering work by Bosley Crowther of the New York Times, while it was characterized as half reality, half nightmare by the Los Angeles Times. Tony Franciosa, on the other hand, made his Hollywood debut in Robert Wise's 1957 comic drama This Could Be the Night. Tony Armati, a charismatic yet erratic nightclub manager, was portrayed by him. Cornelia Baird Gross's short stories served as the inspiration for the film, which featured Gene Simmons and Paul Douglas. Franciosa was the standout performer. His personality and streetwise enthusiasm set him apart from other up-and-coming performers. The fact that he could be both serious and hilarious caught the attention of critics. In the same year, he portrayed a somewhat more serious character in Elia Kazan's A Face in the Crowd. The film explored the influence of the media and the potential perils of celebrity. Lonesome Rhodes, a vagrant who rose to fame on television, was portrayed by Andy Griffith. Franciosa, on the other hand, portrayed Mel Miller, a journalist who saw through the fraud. It was Miller who, in the end, exposed Rhodes and brought him down. Griffith was absolutely great in her role. Franciosa, on the other hand, demonstrated that he belonged among Hollywood's elite. His versatility was on full display in these two pictures, which were released in the same year. Along with fellow performers studio alums Marlon Brando and James Dean, he was joining the next wave of talented performers. Following his impressive start, Franciosa continued to demonstrate his worth. He was George Cukor's Wilde as the Wynn leading man in 1957. Actor Anthony Quinn played Gino, although also played Ben, a teenage ranch worker who had feelings for Anna Magnani's character despite her marital status. Set against the desolate Nevada terrain, the film depicted a passionate love story rife with deception. The connection between Franciosa and Magnani was electric, and his performance proved he could compete with seasoned performers. He starred in Martin Ritt's 1958 film, The Long Hot Summer. Paul Newman, Joanne Woodward, and Orson Welles were the main actors in the film adaptation of William Faulkner's short tales. Welles' role, Jody Varner, was portrayed by Franciosa. Jody is the insecure son of Will Varner, a prominent businessman. Ben Quick, played by Paul Newman, was the self-assured wanderer, and Jody had a hard time getting his father's approval. Because of Franciosa, Jody's despair felt genuine. Ritz had been blacklisted in Hollywood, but the success of the picture helped him regain his career. The historical drama The Naked Maya, which Franciosa portrayed later that year, was about the renowned Spanish artist Francisco Goya and his passionate love with the Duchess of Alba, played by Eva Gardner. Franciosa was paid a substantial sum $250,000 during the film's production delays, which was a huge sum at the time. The picture had a rough go of it when it hit theaters. Nonetheless, he demonstrated his talent for portraying complex and troubled characters with his turn as Goya. Directed by Joseph Anthony, Franciosa gave a career-defining performance in 1959. Sam Lawson, an actor trying to break into Hollywood during McCarthy's reign, was the protagonist of the film. The part was demanding, depicting the hardships endured by an ambitious person in a harsh business environment. Franciosa was the star, albeit he co-starred with Shirley MacLaine and Dean Martin. He was named Best Actor in a Motion Picture at the Golden Globes for his role in drama. He had already established himself as one of Hollywood's leading men by the time he was 31 years old. Art direction, cinematography, and costume design were all nominated for Oscars during career. The most memorable part, though, was Franciosa's performance, which was both honest and moving. Authentically portraying disturbed and depressed persons, Franciosa gained a reputation for her work. His 1957 performance in A Hatful of Rain exemplified this point perfectly. He portrayed Polo Pope, a kind although irritated sibling who struggles with heroin addiction and tries to support his sister. His performance was really electrifying, for which he was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar. Although Tony Franciosa possessed the type of skill that could have catapulted him to Hollywood greatness, his explosive temper frequently stood in his way. He had his fair share of feuds with producers, directors, and co-stars. When things weren't going his way, he would often retreat to his dressing room to pout. It wouldn't be an argument if he had a difference of opinion with the director. He would blatantly disregard orders. There was more than the occasional issue here. His reputation was shaped by it. Franciosa was an ensemble cast member on the 1968 and 1971 NBC sitcom The Name of the Game, which also featured Gene Barry and Robert Stack. Although collaborating with him was difficult, the concert turned out well. After the second season, Universal Pictures felt enough was enough with his explosive temper. Dismissed him. Despite Franciosa's subsequent claims of unfair treatment, the harm had already been done. The film industry had cast him as a problematic actor. When he became angry, it wasn't only about disputes. In 1966, while filming A Man Could Get Killed, James Garner got a glimpse of his true self. Stunt performers were genuinely wounded because Franciosa wasn't withdrawing his punches during battle sequences. Garner intervened because things had gotten out of hand. They got into a violent altercation. These kinds of things made it tougher for Franciosa to get a job. Major parts began to elude him by the late 1960s. He had to accept jobs in European films to keep himself relevant when Hollywood companies lost interest. Franciosa subsequently said in an interview from 1996 that he wasn't prepared for popularity. Claiming to have been too young and ill-prepared to deal with the strain, he apologized. It was already too late by that point. The golden chances have long since vanished. His issues extended beyond the set. As early as April 1957, Franciosa found himself in legal hot water due to his explosive temper. His breakout role in the Oscar-nominated film A Hatful of Rain propelled him to popularity at the time. He and a photographer had an altercation outside of a Hollywood event the same month. Franciosa lost it when one of the press photographers went too far in their pursuit of him. He publicly punched the dude. More than simply negative press washed over him at that time. He was given a 10-day term in the Los Angeles County Jail after being charged with assault. Franciosa continued to earn major parts even after her prison sentence ended. Wild, 1957, and The Long Hot Summer, 1958, both featured him as the Wind. Although the event was long forgotten by the media, his infamous Fury rumors persisted. He became too unpredictable, and studios began to worry. Beyond his charismatic performances, he had become more than just an actor. He posed a threat. But then something else went wrong. Franciosa wed Judy Balaban in 1961. Judy was the daughter of Paramount Pictures president Barney Balaban. Entering the exclusive circles of Hollywood should have been the natural next step. Actually, that could have been the downfall of his career. The marriage infuriated Judy's father, as detailed in her biography Bridesmaids. Some think he secretly blacklisted Franciosa from significant parts by using his position. Even before they tied the knot, Franciosa was climbing the social ladder. In 1959, he had recently received a Golden Globe for his career. After 1961, his career began to decline, despite the fact that he had the makings of a leading man. Less frequently, prominent roles appeared. He began taking on minor parts and traveling internationally in the mid-1960s. According to certain people in the know, Barney Balaban was involved. Franciosa herself never verified it. However, he did imply in subsequent interviews that he had been abandoned by Hollywood executives. A single slip-up wasn't enough to bring about his demise. It was a result of poor choices, negative coverage, and toxic relationships. Only having skill will get you so far in Hollywood. Actors need to know their way around the system, have good contacts, and have a good reputation. Some major parts were nonetheless acquired for Franciosa despite the industry reaction. In 1962, he was George Roy Hill's leading man in the film Period of Adjustment. The film, which drew on a play by Tennessee Williams, examined the marital problems of two spouses in a comedic and dramatic way. Ralph Bites, an irritated spouse, was portrayed by Franciosa. Entangled in the web of society expectations and familial strife, he was able to showcase his humorous skills in this picture, which was a welcome change from his tough parts. While Franciosa's career took a nosedive, his co-star Jane Fonda's took off thanks to a Golden Globe nomination. Even though he didn't fail throughout his transition phase, it didn't alter Hollywood's perception of him. His chances were already slimmed down due to his reputation. It was become more difficult to land film jobs by the mid-1960s. Franciosa, seeking a new beginning, chose to give television a go. He played the major role in the 1964 ABC comedy Valentine's Day. A charming publishing executive who manages his love life and career, he plays the role of Valentine Farrow. A significant supporting cast was included throughout the show, as well as his trusty attendant and poker partner, Jack Sue. It was an opportunity for Franciosa to display his charisma and comedic timing, something he hadn't had much of in his filmography. The show's clever scripts and strong performances were never enough to draw in viewers. A single season was all it lasted. Once again, that cancellation was devastating. Career stability was elusive to Franciosa. The Name of the Game, a groundbreaking series airing on NBC in 1968, cast him as Jeff Dillon. 3 distinct protagonists with their own arcs were followed. As the character, Franciosa was a People magazine investigative reporter. In the role, Gene Barry played a formidable publisher tycoon. In his struggle against corruption and criminality, Robert Stack assumed the job of senior editor. The spotlight was on one of them in every episode, producing a new and exciting series that held the audience's attention. The role of Franciosa, Jeff Dillon, exhibited courage and resolve. Even if it meant going against his ethical principles, he would not back down as a journalist. Social justice, corporate greed, political scandals, and other pressing topics of the day were the subjects of his episodes. His dynamic portrayal of Dillon elevated him to the status of one of the show's most interesting protagonists. The first episode aired on September 20, 1968, and there were a total of 76 episodes in the 3 seasons. Thanks to its high-quality production and relevant tales, it was well received by both spectators and critics. Franciosa had a significant role in the show's rise to prominence and subsequent status as one of NBC's top dramas. Yet, things were different away from the camera. Franciosa was known to be a pain to collaborate with. On set, he frequently argued with producers and directors due to his explosive temper. When he felt mistreated, he would sometimes just stay in his dressing room. The most contentious issue arose in 1970, when, citing financial constraints, Universal Pictures requested that he accept a salary reduction. No, he declined. As tensions rose, the studio ultimately opted to let him go after just 2 seasons. Officially, they said it was because of unpredictable conduct. After the fact, Franciosa said that the studio was trying to get out of him by using his claims of unfair treatment. His departure didn't stop the show from going on for another season. Instead, it brought in special guests like Darren McGavin and Robert Wagner. Lots of viewers, nevertheless, thought it wasn't the same. Its savviness was diminished without Franciosa. The series never got back on track after his dismissal. Franciosa went on to work on additional projects, although they were never as successful as his earlier work. He played the lead role of technologically sophisticated private investigators in the 1972 science fiction series Search. The show only ran for one season, consisting of 23 episodes, despite its intriguing premise. The 1975 detective series Matt Helm, adapted on the spy book by Donald Hamilton, had him in the title character. The 13 episodes that made up the series run from September 20, 1975, to January 3, 1976, were all cut short. Finder of Lost Loves, and Aaron Spelling, a produced ABC drama, was his final big TV performance in 1984. He was the private investigator Carrie Maxwell, who helped individuals get back in touch with ex-lovers. Notable guest stars appeared on the show. The theme tune, which included Dionne Warwick and others, was not well received. Prior to its cancellation, it ran for one season with 23 episodes. Despite his tireless efforts, Franciosa's career was never able to live up to its legendary status. Although his talent was obvious, he had trouble landing assignments that would keep him busy for the long haul due to his reputation. He took a risk instead of sitting around awaiting calls that may never come. He sought a fresh start as an actor in Europe after leaving the United States. While the change may not have restored his Hollywood stardom, it did provide him with consistent employment and the opportunity to play parts that suited his aggressive acting style. He had a starring role in Alberto Lachuata's 1980 Italian drama cricket film La Cicala. A guy entangled in a sad love affair with Wilma Malinverni, he portrayed Annabelle Marighetti, an ex-musician who is now a prostitute. Major Italian prizes went to Verna Lisi for her portrayal of Wilma. Franciosa, however, played a similarly significant part. A life of mistakes weighed heavily on his character, who battled with love and sorrow. In post-war Italy, the film dealt with themes of love, treachery, and despair. In Italy, it was a smashing hit, but it never made it beyond the country's borders. Tenebrae, directed by Dario Argento and set in 1982, was Franciosa's second feature film role. This was Argento's second giallo film, following 1977's smash blockbuster supernatural thriller Suspiria. The role of Peter Neal, an American mystery writer on a promotional tour of Rome, was performed by Franciosa. But the moment he gets there, a murderer begins to use his book as a blueprint for actual killings. As his character sought to learn the truth while becoming a suspect himself, the role offered him the opportunity to blend charisma with paranoia. Thanks to its thought-provoking plot and gorgeous cinematography, the picture went on to become a cult classic. Franciosa's portrayal of the character was multi-layered and unexpected, which lent depth to the plot's twists. He never regained the amount of fame he had in the US, despite the excellent roles he had in Europe. Although the films he was a part of were well received, they failed to break box office records and restore his star power. His acting style, which was strong, emotional, and frequently unpredictable, made him ideal for complicated roles but also limited him to a certain genre. He portrayed the nervous and uncertain Emilio Brentani in Senilita, Careless, 1962. Although he received high marks for his emotionally charged portrayal, the character's difficulties made him inaccessible to a broader audience. His energetic performances in horror flicks like 1971's Web of the Spider stood out. However, the scale of the projects failed to warrant his return to the limelight in Hollywood. Conflicts with producers and directors from his past also followed him. American studios were still wary of taking a chance on him, even though he collaborated with respected European directors. Hollywood had already moved on by the time the 1980s ended. Even though he was no longer a great celebrity, he was still well regarded in European cinema circles. Tony Franciosa's personal life rivaled the dramatic nature of his film appearances. He was no stranger to controversy, passion, or turmoil, having been married 4 times. Shelley Winters was the object of his most notorious affair. Their paths crossed on the set of A Hatful of Rain, and they were married on May 4, 1957. Their chemistry was obvious, but their instability was as well. Their public turmoil, infighting, and love for one another throughout their 3-year marriage was nearly as often in the news as their films. In retrospect, Winters characterized their relationship as full of high drama, low humor, passionate outbursts, and hilarious arguments. However, there were more serious issues lurking beneath the surface. Their relationship suffered as a result of Franciosa's irritability and infidelity. His purported romance with Lauren Bacall was the object of much speculation in the entertainment industry. According to reports, Bacall allegedly contacted Winters to express her displeasure that Franciosa was running late for their scheduled appointment. An angry argument broke out between the two ladies, adding to the mayhem that engulfed their union. Winters, who was never one to hold back, made the joke later on that Franciosa would have been the team captain if sex had been an Olympic sport. There was no less complexity to Franciosa's second marriage. The daughter of Barney Balaban, the influential boss of Paramount Pictures, he wed Judy Balaban in 1961. At first glance, it appeared to be a perfect Hollywood pairing. However, Judy's father was secretly disapproving. As an act of revenge for marrying his daughter, Franciosa's career was said to have been deliberately undermined by Barney Balaban. Whatever the case may be, Franciosa's once promising climb in Hollywood's ranks slowed considerably during their marriage. The major opportunities began to dwindle despite his 1959 Golden Globe-winning performance. There were rumblings amongst industry insiders that Balaban had blocked the actor's path by using his influence. The marriage ended in 1967, despite the couple's daughter Nina being born into it. It was impossible to overlook Balaban's downfall during that time, and Franciosa never openly acknowledged if Balaban played a role in his professional troubles. Personal relationships have the power to make or break a Hollywood career, and his story serves as a reminder of that. Rita Teal was married to Franciosa in 1970, when Franciosa was seeking stability. He found stability in his life through the German fashion model. His last episode of The Name of the Game aired on November 27, 1970, the day they were married. He had a history of unpredictable conduct that led to his dismissal from the program. However, Rita remained unfazed. She was there for him when he needed someone, motivating him to get assistance for his anger issues and teaching him to control his emotions, which had damaged his relationships in the past. She mentioned that he was never taught self-control. Really impacted him. There are still excellent arguments between us, but now I can yell at him if I want to. Franciosa was married to him for the remainder of her life. Their sons Christopher, who continued his acting career, and Marco, who worked in organic farming, were born into this union. Despite his troubled life, Franciosa appeared to find some serenity in his latter years. One last turn of events followed. Shelley Winters was 85 years old when she died on January 14, 2006. Franciosa passed away from a stroke on January 19, a mere 5 days later. The proximity of their deaths rekindled curiosity in their infamous history. Their marriage may have been short-lived, but the bonds that bound their legacies would endure. Both were enrolled in the actor's studio, honed their craft via dramatic, powerful performances, and were known to be unexpected, passionate forces in Hollywood. Franciosa was lauded for his career and unrefined skill in films like A Hatful of Rain, while Winters won 2 Oscars.